Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Karsch Anderson program. I'm Doug Karsch, that's Scott Anderson. How are you today, Scott?
All right, Doug.
Yeah?
Things got a little interesting last night.
Did they ever?
Feisty. You had sent me a text earlier, something completely unrelated, and I hadn't looked at it yet. And as I'm picking up the phone and getting ready to respond to it, then the incident happened on the court last night. So I completely abandoned what I was going to send you initially, and I'm like, oh, Pistons are brawling right now. Mm-hmm. Look at this.
Yep.
Well, look at that.
So there's a lot to get into with this brawl, and there's a lot to talk about with the fallout. And you know, there are moments in time that you wonder if they have larger ramifications, and this is one of them. Are the larger ramifications going to come back and haunt the Pistons in terms of length of suspension? Are the longer ramifications going to be how the league views the Pistons? Because we saw that with the going to work Pistons and the bad boy Pistons, that the league started to officiate their games differently. And that is something that might be some paranoia, but we do that well. And then there's questions in-house that you have to ask about whether or not the Pistons need to change the way they're doing things. And we're at one of those kind of, I feel like last night served as one of those crossroads. We'll get into what happened last night, but there are bigger questions to be asked here. And I'm optimistic that you know, it's a galvanizing moment, and I'm optimistic they still won the damn game without, they were playing without Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart for much of the second half. They already didn't have Ron Holland.
Right.
And what happens? Paul Reed comes off the bench, and Kang, what'd you call Paul Reed today?
He's a modern-day Kevin Garnett. In games I've watched, I've never seen Paul Reed have a bad game. Goes in there, blocks a shot, has a steal, dunks, nails a three. It's unbelievable, right?
I've been a big Paul Reed fan all along.
Oh, you're the guy?
Yeah. No, but I always like, because I think he contributes.
I remember the day they signed him. You're like, hey, Paul Reed, guys.
Paul Reed. But like last night, it was instantly like, first of all, he gets pulled into the game because of the ejections, and then right away thrown to the fire. Hey, after all the ejections and the smoke clears, by the way, the Pistons have to shoot free throws, and Charlotte gets to decide who takes those free throws. And what do? They're going to pick on Paul Reed. Splits the pair. Pistons come back down the court. He knocks down a three, gets a steal. There's a rebound. Here's a blocked shot. Here's another three. I mean, he was all over the place in a very short period of time, and he just answered the bell, and you got to love that.
You do, and I do, and we do. And Detroit, we elevate the role player to hero status better than anybody. But the backdrop of that game, okay, this whole thing starts with an interesting backdrop. You take a look at Charlotte. Now, we got a text and a call yesterday about this game, how Charlotte had won 9 in a row, okay? They went from completely off the radar to on the radar in the East. And, I mean, they're not, like, considered a threat to win the East. But back on January 21st, so what is it, February 10th, back on January 21st, a few weeks ago, they were 16-26 and in 12th place in the East. Okay, so that's a team, and it's a young team, and they've got talent, and you can see it. And, you know, I often now look at teams and think, well, the Pistons were that. Felt like that was the precursor to who the Pistons are now. I see it in Atlanta, and I see it in Charlotte. But they won 9 in a row. They were in 12th place, 16-28. They've put together 9 in a row. Last week they beat Dallas, and Cole Knippel came out after the game and said he thinks they can beat anyone in the league. Okay, so the next week they're playing the Pistons, and they haven't lost again. So here's your anyone in the league game. Here comes the top seed in the East. Now, we can talk about how this is where you've reached true status in the league when you are looked at as a measuring point. And I felt like last night's game was further affirmation that it's not just homer thinking and it's not just Vegas odds and such. Hey, the Pistons are a measuring stick game for this young, talented Charlotte team. And you could feel it in the Spectrum Center. Like that place was bumping last night, and Charlotte was playing like they were trying to send a message. And early in the game, I'm like, that's quite a bit of jawing after that play. It's a bit of a stare down. And I mean, even Cade, like I expect it sometimes from JD and Isaiah Stewart, but even Cade, he went to the basket once, got fouled, and they had a tight shot of him, so I couldn't see who he was talking to. But I'm like, he's not talking to a teammate there. There was a lot of that stuff going on after the whistle. And early in that game, it struck me that this was an emotional powder keg. But I mean, look, I didn't think what was going to happen, but I thought this game means a lot to Charlotte. And I think they're trying to send a message. And I think the Pistons, are getting accustomed to this. But they're in a playoff spot now, and it was really, really a big game for them. And on the Charlotte broadcast, do we have that? Okay. This is the Charlotte broadcast and what they were saying. So it's Eric Collins on play-by-play, and it's Del Curry on color. And this is right before the fight breaks out, okay? And here's what they were saying about the Pistons. And away we go. That's what the conversation was like leading up to that moment. So here we sit in the beginning of February in a team with championship aspirations. And we got a rep. And does the reputation help the Pistons? Or eventually is it going to hurt the Pistons?
Well, I think when you get to the playoffs, it's just a different game. So I don't know if that when you get to the playoffs, all that matters is how is the referee going to call the game. I don't think it matters about reputation. Referees, I think, have this predetermined methodology of what they're going to do. Like, hey, I'm going to call it tight, or I'm going to let them play, and hopefully they let the teams know that ahead of time so they can act accordingly. But for the regular season, I mean, it's dangerous now because you've got targets on your back. They can see that you can get rattled. Look, when the fight started, Jalen Duren pushes Diamante like kind of in the face, and that kind of starts it off. And like, you can't do that. If you're going to push somebody, you push them in the chest or in the back or whatever, and just kind of shove them, like, get out of my way. That's one thing. But when you go a little higher than that, then you're inviting trouble, and trouble came. And JB said afterwards he wasn't happy with it. Thought that they crossed the line. Charlotte did with the way they were running it. JB.
He was very clear at that.
Yeah. So it's interesting how this gets adjudicated if there are appeals and whatnot. But do the Pistons have a reputation? I think they've got a couple of guys that have reputations, and they were the guys that got ejected last night. I think Jalen Duren absolutely has a reputation, and Isaiah Stewart, no question, has a reputation. And I think it stems from that incident he had with LeBron a couple of years ago, where he got elbowed by LeBron. LeBron, what did I do? Well, you threw an elbow at the guy. Of course, that's what you did. And Isaiah Stewart was inconsolable. All he wanted to do was get at LeBron James, which was kind of low-key awesome, to try to get the superstar of the NBA. Hey, you're not allowed to do that just because you're a superstar. I'm calling you out. And chased him all over the court. Now, it cost him a suspension at the time, and that suspension will likely have an effect on this suspension that he's going to get.
We in Detroit embrace physical play in every sport.
Yeah.
We've loved this. Every Piston championship team in our lifetime has been a physical team that played on the defensive end. It's worked for Detroit. But ask yourself this, do you think the league changed the way that they did things because of the bad boys? And remember the going to work Pistons were winning playoff games 68-62. They didn't like that. And so, ultimately we all want the same thing. We want to be to the mountaintop. Can they get there this way? Or is it going to come back to haunt them? And, look, I don't even think the Pistons really were the team that was out of control. Well, Isaiah Stewart was. Diabate was, I mean, he
had to be held back.
10 minutes minutes after it was
legitimately
over.
held back. Yeah, he was still.
He looked like he would sprint onto the court and still swing as he was being taken up the tunnel. Meanwhile, Mike's caught what Isaiah Stewart said walking up the tunnel. It's hysterical.
Well, I'm curious to hear what that was, but I'm watching Jalen Duren go off, and he's popping the jersey
Yeah.
to everybody. Like, all right, here we go.
Yep.
We're going to lean into it, and why not? Because I like the point you brought up. The previous two incarnations of championship teams, the only two in the NBA that the Pistons have, they were fierce competitors, very physical, and why not lean into that? That's part of the Piston DNA, and this isn't new because of last night. This has been woven into the fabric of this team for a year.
And if you think about it too, when you get good doing something, and they're good, the Pistons are really freaking good in the NBA. If you start changing who you are, does it hurt you more than help you? It's kind of like a Dan Campbell conversation, right?
Yeah.
What gets you there? Does it need to be modified, or are you where you are because of what you do? These are big picture questions that JB Bickerstaff and perhaps a very busy this morning Trajan Langdon are having conversations about.
I think you have to find your inner Hulk. You have to be able to tame the monster, keep it under control,
Okay. All right.
and when it's time to let it out, let it out.